Who are some of the most corrupt cops out there who are running giant scams? Let's get right into it, starting with number 6, the unwinnable war. Former Drug Enforcement Administration Special Agent Jose Irizarry received a sentence of over 12 years in prison for operating a money laundering and fraud scheme during his time as an agent. Irizarry, apparently confused as to what his job actually was, funneled millions of dollars from undercover DEA money laundering investigations and accepted $1 million in bribes and kickback payments. Working with his wife, Natalia Gomez Irizarry, the couple was involved in a 7-year scam where they funneled $9 million from DEA undercover money laundering investigations. The couple then moved the money into bank accounts that their co-conspirators could access. Irizarry lived it up like Tony Montana. He bought top seats at sporting events, overspent on fine dining, and traveled all over. He bought his wife a Tiffany diamond ring, purchased several luxury sports cars, and bought a $767,000 home in Cartagena, a Colombian resort city. It was the modest lifestyle of a dirty cop. Once he was caught, Irizarry quickly threw co-workers under the bus in an attempt to save his own skin. He was like a child whining because they were the ones in trouble for taking cookies. Irizarry, turning snitch, claimed he worked with many other agents, prosecutors, informants, and even cartel smugglers. Irizarry's group, Team America, chose cities that would be their money laundering pickups. Team America partied hard, paying for VIP rooms at gentlemen's clubs, enjoying Amsterdam's red light district, and chartering a Colombian yacht. We imagine they probably brought a few pets home, and we don't mean doggies and kitties. Irizarry rationalized that a large part of their corruption came from the belief that the DEA was incapable of ever stopping the drug war. This defeatist attitude led to the new strategy of, if you can't beat them, join them. And they stopped trying to fight the war and found a way to profit from it instead. While former colleagues have dismissed Irizarry of making up stories to reduce his sentence, the U.S. Justice Department started investigating his allegations and interviewed dozens of current and former DEA agents and prosecutors. At best, his colleagues were ignorant or turned a blind eye, but at worst, they were also a part of the operation. In the indictment, Irizarry looked like the sole corrupt agent and mastermind behind the whole scheme, but if his stories are to be believed, he just had the misfortune of being caught. One of the other people accused was George Zumberos, who often traveled for money laundering investigations and was accused of enjoying access to commission funds that he used for personal purchases and trips. Authorities also subpoenaed George's brother, Michael Zumberos, a photographer who traveled with the agents. Michael would have been granted immunity for his cooperation, but he refused to testify, leading to his imprisonment for civil contempt. Zumberos' lawyer implied his client was only jailed because prosecutors wanted to bring more indictments due to the embarrassment they had faced over the whole scandal. Irizarry received a 12-year prison sentence, and since his arrest, wrote the self-published book, Getting Back on Track, where he owned up to his mistakes. When his legal troubles began, his wife began seeking a divorce. We guess a corrupt, philandering DEA snitch doesn't make for a good husband. For a deeper dive into Irizarry's story, click the link here. Number 5. Playing it safe. Bradley Francis, a London Metropolitan Police officer, stole £1,500 from a safe to settle his credit card debts. It was the most irresponsible way to be responsible. He took the money from Stoke Newington Police Station in East London. Francis accessed the safe by pretending that a member of the public had turned in £50 to be placed in the locker. He then used a police pullover to cover his actions, because that never looked suspicious, reaching in, grabbing a stack of cash, then just walking out like Ocean's 11. When When they noticed that money was missing, Francis's co-workers checked the security camera footage and caught him in the act. That one small action cost him his marriage, home, and career. Francis's family says they would have stepped in to help him pay off the credit card debt, but he was too proud to ask for help. Within 30 minutes, he settled his debt, but he had to resign as a police constable because of it. In London's Southwark Crown Court, the judge lectured Francis for abusing his position and taking advantage of the public's trust in police officers. Until he stole the money, Francis had been a well-respected member of the police force. His colleagues vouched for his character and contribution to society, making it clear that he acted out of desperation. Francis pleaded guilty to the charge of theft by employee. In the security camera footage, he spent a long time hovering in front of the safe before he put the money under his fleece, likely contemplating his actions. The cash he took was public money from an ongoing intent to supply investigation. At the time, he was the only person with access to the safe. In court, Francis was remorseful, but the judge still sentenced him to 10 months in prison and gave him 3 months to pay back the money he stole. In his efforts to erase his debt, Francis earned himself a new one. Having lost his job as a policeman, Francis's father planned on hiring him at the family firm once he finished his sentence. Ironically, if he'd asked his father for help in the first place, he would have never had to go to prison. Number 4. Sweepstakes Scammer. The Allen Lottery Scheme Organization, also referred to as ALSO, was an international lottery fraud scam that preyed on vulnerable and elderly Americans. The organization was named after Shelly-Ann Shireen Allen, a Jamaican policewoman that ran the operation. A Wisconsin woman known as Victim 1 lost $150,000 and her home blew the whole thing wide open. The victim received a call from someone claiming to be a representative of the Publishers Clearinghouse and even played background music which made her believe it was real. The representative told her she'd won a house, a Mercedes-Benz, and $18 million. She was told to keep it secret from the bank when she deposited the money. That advice makes more sense when it comes to dealing with your moocher of a brother, not the bank. Representatives contacted her over many months to instruct her to send cash, checks, and money orders to people in the US and Jamaica. They told her she was paying fees to receive her winnings, and she was so convinced she sold her house to make a $30,000 payment. Overall, also defrauded at least 20 elderly Americans out of at least $1.69 million. The group specifically targeted elderly US citizens who had money. Allen spent most of the stolen money on shopping trips. Prosecutors claimed she worked with 6 co-conspirators to move the funds through multiple accounts. Allen was arrested in Florida in February 2022 and charged for running ALSO. While they were arresting her, police discovered that she was also a drug mule. When Allen was arrested, authorities found packages of powdery contraband hidden on her during their pat-down. She was literally covered in it. They took her to the hospital after asking if she had swallowed any of it, and she said yes. There, she regurgitated 90 pellets of that substance, carrying a street value of over $37,000. She was ultimately sentenced to almost 3 years for the drug charges. The hero cop is still awaiting sentencing for stealing from old people. Number 3. Extra Duty Scheme. 4 police officers, David Cilio, Paul Pavia, Mark Liggy, and Christopher Bromes, took part in a scheme where they claimed the money for canceled extra duty project fees. The officers submitted at least 643 false payroll vouchers, which amounted to $187,618. The utility company that paid the money was an affiliate of Eversource, which regularly hired off-duty officers for security. Cilio, Pavia, Liggy, and Bromes worked in the division that administers the extra duty program. According to the police union rules, contractors that canceled a job later than 10 p.m. the previous day had to pay 4 hours of the officer's time. Part of the city's contract with the police union stipulated that jobs were offered to police officers first. Investigators were auditing the process used to assign jobs to off-duty officers, such as directing traffic and construction sites or providing security at events when they noticed something unusual. Few officers seem to be collecting a large number of cancellation fees. Extra duty work paid $68 an hour, and the jobs the officers claimed the fees for were never assigned to them. Assistant Police Chief James Matheny began an inquiry into the possibility that at least 2 officers, Cilio and Pavia, had submitted vouchers improperly for canceled jobs. The Internal Affairs Division found suspicious vouchers from Liggy and Bromes Bromes as well. To make matters worse, the officers were veterans of the force. Cilio and Pavia had been Stamford police officers for 29 years. Liggy had been with the department for 33 years, and Bromes had spent 21 years with the department. The investigation found that the only sergeant to receive vouchers for canceled jobs was Bromes, with 34 vouchers. The other officers had far more. Cilio had 256, Pavia had 221, and Liggy had 132. In June 2019, the group was arrested. All four faced charges of first-degree larceny and conspiracy to commit first-degree larceny, which seems redundant, but okay, throw the book at them. Judge Gary White approved accelerated rehabilitation for Cilio, Pavia, and Liggy. The pretrial program is offered to people accused of non-violent crime. They were eligible for the program if they help provide information against Christopher Bromes. White said the original charges against them would be dropped if they committed no other crimes during the 6-month period. Each officer also had to make a $10,000 contribution to their chosen charity. While the three officers falsely claimed extra duty vouchers, they handed the paperwork to Bromes, who failed to record the required paperwork and oversaw the office. Number 2. Everyone's scamming. Over 131 people participated in one of the most significant disability fraud cases in U.S. history. The participants included 72 former New York City police officers and 8 former firefighters. The scam operated for 2 decades and stole over $400 million in taxpayer money. The plot began in 1988 when 4 facilitators coached hundreds of applicants on ways to convince the Social Security Administration that they were entitled to monthly disability payments as they had psychiatric conditions that made them unable to work. Many retired police officers and firefighters began to feign mental illnesses to receive benefits. Some pretended they suffered post-traumatic stress after the 9/11 attacks. Long Island resident Raymond LaValle was the wizard behind the curtain. He represented the applicants and coached them into making false claims, and they learned from him how to work the system and get fraudulent benefits. LaValle could have received a maximum of 25 years on top of the original grand larceny, but in return for his assistance with the case, he received a 1-year prison sentence and was ordered to pay $2 million in restitution. LaValle, like any good ringleader, had minions. How could he be a ringleader without an actual ring to lead? John Minerva, former Nassau County Assistant District Attorney and retired police officer, helped LaValle orchestrate the scheme. Thomas Hale and Joseph Esposito assisted them. The group coached NYPD officers, firefighters, and corrections officers into making the fraudulent claims. Some suspects received hundreds of thousands of dollars in benefits. One man, Richard Costantino, received over $200,000 in payments, and another participant, Louis Pertidoin, collected $395 in disability payments. Amongst those charged were 2 doctors who received kickbacks for giving bogus diagnosis. More than 100 applicants pleaded guilty, but most received no jail time as long as they paid back the money they stole. More than $1 million was seized from bank accounts, with additional seizures expected. The district attorney's office received more than $25 million in restitution and forfeiture. Number 1. Socioeconomic matters. New York police officer Yaniris Jen DeLeon was involved in a medical insurance fraud scheme where she gave confidential information about car crash victims in exchange for payment. Anthony Rose, the alleged mastermind, paid thousands of dollars for protected patient information to give to insurance scammers. Those scammers would then steer the victims to a New York and New Jersey network of doctors and lawyers for unnecessary treatments. The scheme made over $18 million, operating from roughly 2014 to 2019. The scheme was based out of a call center in Queens, New York. Rose targeted people in, quote, the hood, since he felt that people in Manhattan could afford expensive attorneys. The operation comprised of at least 60,000 people's information. They paid NYPD employees and people working in federally funded hospitals as much as $4,000 monthly for patients' information. DeLeon pleaded not guilty and was released on $50,000 bail. Her attorney claimed most of the charges in the indictment had nothing to do with her. It wasn't the first scheme that Anthony Rose helped run. He bribed his brother Frank Rose, a former field representative for the city of Linden's neighborhood redevelopment program, in exchange for roughly $1.3 million in construction services. Anthony, being a great father, admitted that Frank awarded 2 of his companies approximately 37 contracts that totaled $1,329,000. And exchange for the corrupt payments. A judge sentenced Frank Rose to 60 months in federal prison for accepting corrupt cash payments and other benefits for giving favorable treatment to specific contractors. He also had to pay $189,000 in restitution to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. U.S. District Judge Ann E. Thompson granted the government's motion for Anthony's downward departure as his corruption in the case helped authorities stop the fraudulent scheme from continuing. He received a sentence of 6 months of house arrest. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section below, which government do you think is the worst in the world?